So hey guys, welcome to Legends of Runeterra and your beginner guide video. This one is going to go through a match between Temba and I. It's a friendly match, nothing too serious. We're using the exact decks that you guys are going to be using for the tournaments. So I think it's a perfect place to start. So we start the games with the mirror matchup. Both of us are using Demacia decks, Freljord and Demacia. Because of the recording, my interface was glitching a little bit, but that does not usually happen. So, from the get-go, we're greeted with the game's most unique aspect, the mulligan. You initially get a hand of 4 cards, and you get to choose, depending on your opponent and the deck that they're using, how to best counter them. So you get to switch out any cards that you don't need and pick random cards out of there. You can either take your whole hand and change it for different cards, or you can just pick 1 or 2 or 3. The mulligan is very unique, and it's also great for those moments where you end up picking your end game cards, but you really need to play some of your early game cards as well. So gives you an opportunity, another chance to see if you can get a better hand. So for this example, I had really big heavy units, so I needed to try to switch them out for lighter units that I can play in the early game. At this point, we wait for my opponent to finish their mulligan, and then we may begin. Before anything, I just want to point out Vanguard Sergeant. This is a card that has a unique effect that when you summon it, it gives you a 6-cost spell that gives 3 damage and 3 health to all of your units on the board. Being able to play this card when you have multiple units on the board is usually considered one of Demacia's win conditions because it's just almost unstoppable. In order to play any card, you need to understand mana cost. The mana cost is the top left number on every card. Every round you gain exactly 1 mana. So I've drawn a 1-cost card that will allow me to spend 1 mana to play it. The card that I've played is Cytherea of Cloudfield. She has 2 power and 2 health. Health is represented on the right with the red border, and power is represented on the left with the orange border. This is a good time to also explain the action system and the round system. The person who starts the round gets the attack token, which allows them to attack once at any point during their round. In every round, there are an unlimited number of turns that you take between your opponent and yourself. When I perform an action on my turn, I hand the opponent an opportunity to also perform an action and have that turn. For example, if I summon a unit, they now have the option to summon their own. If I place an attack, they have the option to now defend with their unit, or any spells that may be relevant to the situation. For this situation, my opponent has decided to block with his unit, as well as use a spell to destroy one of my other units. So for the units that have the golden border around their health, those are special units called tough units. Tough units are able to mitigate 1 damage from every spell or attack. So if it's a 2 health tough unit, you need 3 damage to actually destroy it. So in order to defend himself from this attack, he's used a special spell called Single Combat. An ally and an enemy strike each other, using that to strike my vulnerable 2/2 unit that does not have tough with his tough unit, then allowing himself to also damage my 3/3 unit with his tough unit that still had some health remaining. The opponent now tries to finish off my unit that only has 1 health left with a special skill from his unit, but luckily enough I was able to emote on him and then play a special spell that gives my unit 3 power and 3 health to mitigate the damage. So I use something called a burst spell to make this work. Burst spells happen instantaneously. They cannot be blocked or stopped. They're too fast. Fast spells, unlike burst spells, can be stopped, but they're at least able to be used within combat or after another spell has been used. Burst spells are instantaneous and cannot be stopped, while fast spells are not instantaneous. They take at least a turn to activate. This gives the opponent the opportunity to block it if they have the appropriate spells. So the round shifts to me now, as the opponent has decided to give up his attack token, which is sometimes the only option you have, but sometimes can also be used as a strategy. So after thinking about it for a bit, I use my unit skill to do 1 damage to his unit that only has 1 health, and that actually goes through because he has no defense against it, no burst spells or fast spells to help him. So different units have different abilities. This card that he displayed is able to heal him for 3 health, which becomes really important when you're on the losing end. Because I've basically swarmed him, I'm going to go ahead and attack with all of my units and see what he does. He's chosen to defend my strongest unit, which makes the most sense, but here's where I now get the opportunity to use my burst spell, which gives my unit 1 health and 1 power, just allowing me to barely survive. The turn now goes back to my opponent, and this is a good time to explain spell mana. Any mana left over from the previous round is transformed into spell mana. You only have a maximum of 3 spell mana, so it's always very good to strategically plan out how you're going to gain and use it. So the unit to the left of my opponent's board is called an Overwhelm unit. Overwhelm is shown by the cracked shield, and what it does is essentially, if I defend that unit with a unit that has lower health, I will take the difference as damage to my Nexus. The unit that I've just summoned is called a Challenger unit, and during my attack, I'm able to pull in any enemies that I find as high value targets and attack them directly using that unit. I finished the round with 1 mana and 1 spell mana. That mana will now translate to spell mana. So before I do anything, I now need to explain slow spells. Slow spells are spells you can only activate when it is your turn. You cannot activate these in response to someone else's spell or during someone's attack. Slow spells are not usually fast, but they're very powerful. For example, they usually have game-ending abilities like this one right here. So I'm going to go ahead and make my attack. He's got 3 units, and I've got 6 units that are all buffed. I'm going to use my Challenger unit to pick up the most crucial target, but at the end of the day it doesn't matter, because no matter how you put it, he's going to lose this. So yeah, that's where we are. That is your average Legends of Runeterra match, and how it's gonna be for the tournaments. I hope you guys are excited. We really want to see new players. I hope I didn't scare anybody off. I know there's a lot of concepts that I've introduced, but the game gets easier as you play it. So yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you have yourselves a lovely night, day, or whenever it is that you are watching this. Bye.